America. They're gonna be rich.
Hello and welcome everyone. This is going to be a shorter episode of Wildin Out. We're really glad you all were able to stop by. I am Marty B, and joining me I have Seth, also known as For Christ, and the Rotted Zombie. Let's go to Seth. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to talk about some playoffs.
And we do have a lot of playoffs talk coming up. Rotted, how are you?
I'm okay. Focused, busy, everything in between. Just digging into the mini set. Looking to have some fun first, though, with what's right ahead of us.
Yeah, that was just announced, and they already revealed some cards. There's some good ones in there.
I mean, I think there's going to be a lot for us to talk about, but I also think that we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's excited. They're all going to be speculating and theory crafting over the weekend as cards are revealed. So we'll leave that to other shows. For now, let's focus on the Conquest meta. With that, we're not doing Player of the Week. We're deep in playoffs, so Player of the Week is scrapped for the time being. That'll come back next season. And we'll also have season awards in a few weeks as well. So with that, let's move right on in. We have the meta overview to take a look at. So once again, we have fewer decks than the previous week. As teams get eliminated in playoffs, there's fewer decks to be brought by teams because there's just fewer players. And as we see here, there's been a shift back to Warlock from the last week. Now, that's the most popular class, but the most popular archetype is still Odd Hunter. We see Odd District Hunter, 29 brings out of the 32 times it was brought, 2 Even Hunters, and 1 Beast Hunter last week, believe it or not. Very unusual. No Demon Hunters. This is the first time we've seen no Demon Hunter in, I don't know, half the season, I want to say. There's always a few Demon Hunters, but that is now gone. Druid still has solid representation. Mage, Paladin, and Shaman are all faltering. They're a bit behind the rest. And we have Priest and Rogue with decent numbers, similar to Druid. The big thing to take away from all this is most experimentation is dying out. And it's mostly because players bringing them are kind of just losing. This meta is really punishing to a lot of experimentation. And I think the others here will agree with that. Right, guys?
I think so.
Absolutely. You've seen such a separation among the top decks and anything below that it would be only natural that fairly soft to good decks would basically obliterate anything that isn't in the same ballpark as them.
Yeah, no kidding. But even with experimentation dying out, we still have 2 more decks this week to feature that are a little bit different from the rest of the field. It's always something. So let's go take a look at the first deck on the main screen now. And this one's pretty special to me. This is my own take on Lightest Hour Murloc Paladin.
My
So,
God.
yeah, this deck is just turn your brain off, play Prismatic Lens, and then vomit Warlock or Murlocs and win the game.
Just get them.
It's just, it's one of those things I decided, you know what? I'm not going to think, I'm going to scam. And boy, did it scam. I feel bad for 6J last week who I faced with this. He had to take on about 15, 20 Murlocs by turn 7. And it did not go well. for him. So very fun deck, very mindless and Timmy deck, I want to say. This is very much a Timmy deck where you draw your lens, you play it, and then you get a cheap tip the scales and do this really big flashy thing and win the game with it. So lots of fun if you like to scam.
And I think this kind of deck is the partial exception to the rule that we were just talking about. I mean, yes, in theory, it probably still loses more often than not to some of these other top decks, but if you're looking for experimentation, I think this is the way people are going to find success with it. Stuff that looks for an OTTK or looks for just a high roll scam, rather than some sort of cute line that might just end up collapsing. Wow, you just get them.
There's really not much more to say about this. The only other thing is I want to point out the Grizzle Wizard and the 3 Murlocs that change your hero power. These are especially effective against Odd Hunter. And they have some utility in Steven Lock as well, where you just take their hero power, swap it off with something useless for them, and then their game plan is severely disrupted, which helps you get ahead even farther.
That's really something. Yeah, the Vilefin Inquisitor is an atypical choice, but it works wonders with Grizzled Wizard. Well done.
Really. You. And yeah, this did win, so try it out. And the second deck, this one, I think we have to call the classic White Delight Special, because we have Reno Shaman.
Oh my
Brought
god.
it. I know you brought a deck similar to this week, actually. So
Yes.
you're probably more well equipped to talk about some of the choices in here. Can you walk us through those?
Yes. I mean, if it's White Delight, you're going to be expecting choices like Alar, like White Eyes, stuff that's a little bit classic, but in a N'Zoth or Newzoth package, has the potential to be a value engine. That being said, this is just a White Delight special. You see stuff like Spellword Jeweler, you see stuff like BGH. It's Tech W all the way down. But with enough back end that it can cause some trouble if you leave it alone for too long. This is typical White Delight. You know, you look at it and you're like, oh my god, really? But then you look at his record this season, and he's in the 1 seed with, I believe, an 8-2 record for Hair Club. And with good reason. He can take these sort of decks and pilot them to high legend against meta stuff and get reliable results.
I believe he's 9-2 now.
9-2, yes.
This is extremely impressive. Well, soon to be 9-3 though, because someone is going to go undefeated this season to a championship. But we won't talk about that.
And looking at some of the tech choices in here, this stuff that people sleep on, but is just generally okay. Like Claw Machine is just a decent card, and it generates further value with its Death Rattle, and comes back via N'Zoth, God of the Deep, and N'Zoth the Corruptor. Just useful stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just kind of contest the board until you get to your bombs, and then next thing you know, you overwhelm your opponent and you win.
Although, you know, if I may confess, I am legitimately surprised that it does not run 2 copies of Dirty Rat, which we've seen him experimenting with throughout the season and throughout his latter exploits over the last few months. But I guess this is just what he's settled on for the tech choices of the week.
I guess so. Yeah, this list is constantly changing. So it's interesting to see the latest iteration every week. With that, those are our decks for the week, and we have only a few matches to cover, but we're going to get right into them immediately. So let's move on to our first matchup from NA. It's Nofin 2 Underwater Boogaloo versus the aforementioned Hair Club. Seth, I know this is your team, so this match was pretty personal to you. You want to run us through what happened?
Yeah, so going down the list, White Delight swept Itachi, which I'll come back to that in a second. Otters took Otters versus EPT Hopper was the last match of the week, which Otters took 3-2. And then both myself and Tiger Eyes swept Concern Mom and Memnarch, and Glare took a 2-3 loss to Burnt. So on the scoreboard, we tied, but because of tiebreakers and Hair Club having a better regular season record, they won the tiebreaker, which is what put them in the finals over us. So,
Just to
go
clear
ahead.
things up, the tiebreaker here in playoffs is by matches won. So they won 3 matches here, which is why they go ahead. Normally in the regular season, this would be considered a tie because you tie in points. The tiebreakers you're thinking of are just for playoff seeding only.
Yeah, that was my mistake. I misread, but
All good.
clearly you can see they took 3 match wins over us, which was really unfortunate because going into this week, we started off with double sweeps. So we were up 8-0. And we kind of worked out the math that as long as we didn't get swept, we could lose the rest of them as long as we got 5 game wins over the remaining 3 matches. But, and, all props to Itachi. He stepped in as an emergency sub when we needed him. He just could not get a win. He said it just went out really unfortunately. And you can't help that sometimes. That's the way it rolls. And unfortunately, we came out on the losing end. But Hair Club definitely earned it. You can tell by their season record and just by the quality of the players, they really earned this. And I'm very glad to see them move on to the finals since we couldn't.
Yeah, let's be honest. You guys are really is making this as tight as possible. It wasn't even really a misplay that brought the end to you guys, but kind of a coin flip, really. We see like this is 12-12, and if any of these matches go one way or another, then this changes. Any one game would have changed things. But really, it's hard to point the finger at anything other than a single key Zephyr's turn where Zephyrus whiffed on setting up lethal. And I don't mean to rip the band-aid off or put salt on the wound, but when it comes to matches like this where it takes a single whiff on a card to get the win, it really shows how closely matched these teams are and how tight the race for the playoffs are. So, congrats to Hair Club for winning, but I don't want to say that Nofin wasn't deserving of making the finals either.
I'd like to add a little side note too. EPT Hopper versus Otters, I mentioned, was the last game. It also went to game 5. It
Yes.
was as close as it could possibly get.
Yeah, this whole thing was winner take all in the end and extremely close. So hats off to both.
We might have lost Marty, I worry.
Hello, I am
I
back.
think we.
My
Oh, there we go.
my internet cut out. I'm so sorry.
That's what
I was
worried
saying
about.
yes. So I was saying that covers one batch, and we have another one on the other side of the bracket between F2L and everyone's a winner. Roderick, you want to cover that one for us?
I'd be absolutely delighted to. And if not for the Hair Club against Nofin 2, I would have been using the phrase as close could be. And as we see, Hair Club Nofin obviously was a tie on points, and it went down to the tiebreaker. F12 Viridian and everyone's a winner. 13-12 in favor of our F2L team, Marty, but I think you'd agree that it was just about as close as could be. This series also came down to Game 5 with Neji eking it out over Jordan in the final game of their match. But all along the wire, it was, I want to say back and forth with sort of like one exception, which we'll get to. But you saw Corbett stretch out his perfect season to 11-0 over Battle Tagger 3-1. Get Me Out dropped his match 3-1 to Sunday. You, Marty, with your just beautiful Tip Paladin, took out 6J 3-1. The aforementioned Neji won 3-2 over Jordan, and I got locked in the shed and beaten within an inch of my life by Hazer 3-0. So some
Okay, we
things
dragged you out of there.
That's okay. I sort of dragged myself in. I got the direct counter, so we'll just get that out of the way. Hazer brought a full, hard, beautiful control lineup that just makes me feel all the feels, anticipating that I would be doing this and that, and I brought aggro, and I got obliterated. I did set up lethal in all 3 games, mind you. Just he found the outs, so I tried. Looking at the rest of the series, a few things really specifically caught my eye. I know we've talked about your Tip Paladin, Marty, but you also brought a nice special Even Hunter, one of the 2 brings this week, and cases where it's an atypical bring, but here we are. You won your match.
Mm-hmm.
And it was left up, and it did the job. I mean, that's sort of been the case of Even Paladin this season.
Or Even Hunter, you mean?
That's what I mean. Excuse me. Looking at Get Me Out's list, one thing really stood out to me. He did drop his series, and it was a very solid win for Sunday. But he had a very interesting inclusion of Bear Shark in his Odd Hunter, which I just wanted to call that out because it'd be something that you would not see as typically, and I find it fun. Of course, Corbett is Corbett. He does his own thing. He delivers consistent results. His player score is the highest I think we've basically ever seen. I can't confirm that unless you can. But he should be a professional Hearthstone player. But he's here with us. And so we'll just love him and ride him as far as he'll take us.
Yeah, we were doing some math, or I was doing some math on a real par replacement system. So points above your average replacement, basically. And unlike the non-day system, this one takes into account the strength of the opponent. So we take the average player and compare them against the opponents that a given player faces. And then from there, we can get an expected number of points. And Corb had 16 more points than you would expect from the average player against his opponents. Absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider... Yeah, he's about 8 points ahead of second place in that.
He could and should be a professional if he had the ability to put all financial concerns and everything else to the wind and didn't give a rip about whether or not it was fun. He could do it, and he could be grandmaster level. I'm convinced. He's here with us, and he's our friend, and let's just embrace that beautiful fact.
Nobody tell him the format is dead.
Shit. Now,
that would have required the format to have been alive.
All this love I'm giving to F2L right here, you have to give an almost equal amount of love, 12 out of 13th amount of love, I should say, to Everyone's a Winner, because they brought good stuff, and they played it within an inch of advancing to the finals against Terror Club. They are just that good. These 5, I would take on any team and put them in the 1 seed, and that team would be competitive. These are exceptional players, exceptional guys. I'm proud to call them all my friends, and they just know how to play the game. There's a reason they've won before. There's a reason they'll win again.
I'm going to take a quick moment to also shout out Jordan MG. He went on to win the Born to be Wild Listener Series.
Hell yeah, Jordan. Well played,
Yeah,
sir.
so
Well played.
Anyone unfamiliar, the Born to be Wild podcast runs a listener series similar to THL. No teams, just individuals. And they have a deck building challenge every week. And Jordan joined that built unique decks with different restrictions every single week and got all the way through the entire tournament to the finals and won on stream. It was a lot of fun. A lot of well-known players in there, and it really showcases both his deck building skills and his skills as a player. So,
Just so
congrats to him.
guys can win with good stuff. They can win with unconventional stuff. They're just players, and they're gonna be back next season. And if not for, a little less good play from us or a coin flip that maybe in some point in the game that went the wrong way, they're in the finals, and you have to give them all the credit in the world.
Yeah, I just want to correct you on one thing.
Oh, what'd I do?
They're not a standard player. They're not wild players. They're Hearthstone players.
Oh, I see. I see. Are we all? Is this where we sing like a song of peace and togetherness, and just thank goodness that we're not mercenaries players?
Hold on. Don't do that, because I actually tried
Oh.
playing Mercenaries as free to play and I cried. So, on that note, let's pretend this never happened and move to our playoff brackets.
Let's go.
We have an updated bracket for all of you to see. Here it is on the screen now, with F12 and Hair Club in the center facing off for the championship. Who will win? We don't know. We have some thoughts that we'll get into later. But for now, could be anyone. Now, we also have one other series, and that is on the other side of the pond in the EU. We have 2 matches there to discuss. Let's take a look. First one, EU Everyone's a Winner versus Bad Tech Cards. Seth, this was a very lopsided one. What happened here?
Well, I mean, you can see it on the screen. It was the opposite of NA playoffs. So nothing against bad tech cards, but it looks like they just really had a rough week with Everyone's a Winner not only getting all 5 game wins, but they had a sweep from Mr. Luke, and everybody else, Lasagna, Adrian, Maxa, and QB, all took a 3-1 win over their opponents. And that's really a mark of how good Everyone's a Winner is, and that's nothing to downplay bad tech cards. I mean, you can roll poorly, but they rolled extra poorly this week. Nothing against them.
Yeah. I know the one matchup that was interesting was between Mr. Luke and Elfie. Elfie did her thing of having a unique twist to her match, and this time it was full Galakron lineups. So both players brought 4 Galakron decks, with Mr. Luke bringing Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior. Elfie also brought Rogue, Warlock, and Warrior, but changed the Shaman to the Priest Galakron deck. As we see, it didn't work out, and Mr. Luke 98 got the sweep. Beyond that, the other match we had was just slightly closer. Let's take a look over there. Rodden, what do you think?
Only slightly. It got away from us, and it got away from us pretty hard. I think we were just done. Goku and I got blown out of the water. Shadow Frog was only just a step ahead of us. Otters did his part. It made Burnt's match irrelevant. So the score is what you see, and we just didn't have it, and Safari Wild did, and as a result, they're moving on. Not a whole lot positive on my part to say, and it's just been a pleasure playing in Europe. It was fun, but yeah, this one stings.
Yeah, you're right. There's not much to say here, but glad to see one of you guys got a win. The only thing that disappoints me is by the end of the season, you guys didn't change your name to Otters #1.
Well, he did. We'd have to have another week of the season, in which case he'd be back in the 1 seed. But given where it ends now, and is that since there is no other week, he shall remain number 2. Sorry, I
Very
couldn't.
disappointed there.
Yeah.
Otters, you
But
gotta step up your captain game. Get those
It's the
name
way-
changes in weekly.
that's the way it is. I think his excuse was he didn't want to perturb Hat too much. I think we even know that
Right.
one.
Yeah, sure.
I
I
mean,
hear excuses.
I think this speaks to. I mean, as a microcosm, I think this speaks to sort of where the meta is right now. Like Burn had a rough EU season, but he's been killing it in NA. So I don't know. It's just the way it
Yeah,
is sometimes.
it's also pretty significant to point out that Burnt's collection was significantly more limited in the EU, correct?
Sure, that of course is a given. Yeah.
Yeah. So that probably had a bit to do with it. Regardless, it was a good run, and you guys finished positive on the season. So congrats.
Thank you, thank you. I'm eager to see where. I'm talking to lots of people right now. I'm eager to see where
okay.
Safari Wild, F2L, Agony, and EU Free One's the winner go from here. I'm eager to see the rest of the playoffs mostly. And yes, that was my daughter.
Tell Sage we all say hi.
I will.
But
Thank you, my friend.
with that, let's move on to the EU playoff bracket. We do have that for you as well now. So with 6 teams, this was a little different. And the winner from the match in the top left between EU Everyone's winner and Bad Tech Cards would decide which teams playing last week would be placed in the seeding afterwards. So since EU Everyone's winner won, they automatically played F12, and the winner between Goku number 1 and Safari Wild would play a little Agony. Safari Wild got through, so as we see, they will be playing a little Agony this week. Match is already underway. You can see some of the updated scores on the website if you like. Otherwise, we will have a recap next week alongside the finals.
Now, if I may, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but in case anybody watching didn't know, our very own Marty B got named as the newest board member just this week. So congratulations to him.
Hey, good job, my friend.
Thank you.
But beyond that, EU playoff semifinals look a little similar to NA in that F2L is playing everyone's a winner again. And I just really hope that you being promoted to board member might not sway that match, if you know what I'm saying. Because that seems awfully similar to what played out in NA.
All I'm going to say.
That's just my opinion, though.
All I'm going to say is I give the EU team some scouting reports and some deck suggestions when they ask, and they do their thing, and whatever they decide on and accomplish is on them. I'm significantly less hands-on with the EU team than the NA team, sadly. So, no manipulation there. We'll see how it goes.
That's what I'd say too.
So with that covers our matches and our updated playoff brackets for this week. It's a bit of a shorter episode. We have one final question, and we touched on this earlier, and now we're going to come back to it. So with the finals going on between F12, Viridian, and Hair Club, everyone wants to know all different kinds of like predictions. People love predictions. I don't know why. I'm always going to say the same thing. We all know my team is better, so they're going to win. Okay, how do you not win when you have Corb on your team? It's easy. Just win. Okay? But despite all that, still got to ask the question. Who wins each match in NA this week? Seth. Everyone knows my answers already. Let's hear from someone else instead. What do you think?
Well, at least for Corvette, we're going to disregard his score. We're going to disregard what kind of player he is. He brought Even Hunter, so he's guaranteed to win automatically. Everybody knows that Even Hunter's broken, best deck in the game. Beyond that, I think it gets a little more difficult, but for the sake of my two co-hosts, I really do have faith in you guys. I love Hair Club. They're great guys, and I think it's going to be a very close race, but I wouldn't feel right placing my bets on one friend over another, so I'll pass it back to you and let you do with that what you will.
No. Okay, fine. I got to throw a Hair Club bone. And what the? I want to go to Burnt's lineup real quick. We don't have it on the screen, but for anyone interested, this man brought the spice. Okay, it's something about it's not even that. Something about this meta just brings out the weirdest paladin decks imaginable. Okay, we saw deck buff paladin this season. We saw Murlocs already, and this week we have big paladin. Okay, I don't know how Burnt's match is going to go, but I just know it's going to be a 3-0 in one player's favor. I don't know which. Maybe Meowth gets it, maybe Burnt gets it. But regardless of who gets it, it's going to be a 3-0. And I'm really looking forward to seeing who gets that sweep.
I'm going to quickly throw the list up on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, that would be great. Our OP Fish, thank you Fish for OPing, by the way. He is bringing the big paladin list on the screen. We can also reach out to him and get his opinion as well. Fish, do you have any opinion on this week's match?
So I haven't looked at all the lineups. I've obviously we obviously talked before. I mean I'm more biased towards F2L. It's like I'm friends with most of the players on the team, but I also am friendly with some of the people on Hair Club, and I think like based on your sentiments that Hair Club might have a slight advantage in lineups. And it's just I think it comes down a lot to execution. Especially when Burt brings a deck like that, he's expected to. He's like you said, it's probably gonna be a sweep one way or the other. It might not be, but I don't know. I think it'd be cool to see a new champion. As much as I love F2L Viridian, I love all of you guys. And seeing back to back would be great. But I'll say for the sake of having another voice that I think Hair Club's gonna take it down and get their title.
Thank you, Fish. Remind me never to have you OP again.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
It's all good. We appreciate
it's
everyone's opinions.
Only the utmost respect for all these people. They're fantastic.
Nah, they're all scrubs. Lousy Tempo Storm scrubs, all of them. But really, best of luck.
All of our Tempo Storm writers have been involved in these finals teams this season. Even Hair Club sub Keith.
Yeah, Keith numbers.
Big games for them.
It's like him.
Tempo Storm lol. Come on.
Yeah, but really, best of luck to Hair Club this week. Really looking forward to some of these matches. And I'm glad we were able to face again. So, looking forward to it this week. And with that, do we have any other final comments for anyone?
I do. So, in honor of the semifinals, which were the same four from last season, I wrote a little poem, and it goes something like this. F2L broke. Hair Club woke. Everyone's a winner, choke. And no fin 2, joke. Thank you very much.
Was almost about to ban you again. And then you made fun of yourself.
I actually have a question as my final comment. Is there a record for the longest series that we've seen in a THL match? Like one streamed match, like 5 games, like the longest, like time-wise?
My guess is it's the final match of last year's Hero playoffs, which went all 5 games, and they were in Priest. Control Priest from last meta was in every single game, including a Priest mirror, including a mirror match.
Well, my match with
Priest won every match. It was over. It was somewhere. It was over an hour. It was like close to an hour and a half, probably, maybe longer.
my match with Memnarch isn't going to go quite that long, but I think there's the potential that it's going to go quite long. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been a hot minute.
Nice.
Yeah, there were definitely some long matches in the past. I believe there was probably 1 or 2 that hit the 2-hour mark. I know that we had Control Warrior. I wasn't around in THL, but there were Control Warrior mirrors during the early Rise of Shadows Specialist era. And those would easily last 40 minutes each. Just for one match. So imagine a best of 3, and you can see how that could go, upwards of 2 hours long. And it's just a miserable time to sit through. So I'll have to check historically with some other people to find out what the longest match was, but there's quite a few up there. So we'll make sure to find out about that and get back to the viewers in the Discord, because that's a really interesting trivia. And with that, that ends the show. So we're just about to wrap things up. Thanks again, everyone, for sticking around and watching. Best of luck once again to everyone left in the playoffs, both in NA and EU. Thank you, Fish, for OPing, even though you won't be OPing from now on.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Yes.
It was a good ride. It was a good ride, everybody.
Yes, it was fun for all of us.
Don't worry, my ban only lasted a week. You'll be just fine.
Just in time for next week's show.
Yeah, really. Thank you, Rodden and Seth, for coming on once more and making the show fun.
Always a pleasure.
So, see you all next week. Take care.